Okay. Okay, get some toast. We'll wait for you then. No, we won't. Sorry. We won't call this meeting officially to order because we don't have a quorum, but let's begin the process. We have Representative Paul Anderson with the bill, House File 1298, which is going to be laid over for possible inclusion in the HHS omnibus bill. So with that introduction, Representative Anderson, would you like to introduce your bill?
Mr. Chair, I think somebody would have to introduce the bill for me, or have you done that? Yeah.
I'm sorry. Representative Schumacher moves House File 1296 to be laid over for possible inclusion to the omnibus health bill.
I couldn't have picked a better choice. Anyway, thanks, Mr. Chair and members. We'll go slow here for a couple of minutes. House File 1296 relates to an organization back up in Sauk Center called the Eagles Healing Nest, and they've been in operation for a couple of years and working with veterans in the area. And Stearns County has done an outstanding job of working with the Eagles Nest and helping them obtain GRH funding and in a whole variety of other ways. And Stearns County would like to be reimbursed for some of the funds that they've expended for helping get the Eagles Healing Nest program going in terms of the GRH funding and such. And Mr. Chair, I have Stearns County representative here to discuss the reasons behind the bill. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Mark Sizer. I'm the Human Services Administrator for Stearns County. Human Services in Stearns County provides corrections, public health, and social services. We have been involved in providing services to Eagles Healing Nest for over a year in their Sauk Center location. They currently have about 60 residents and have opened a third building, which will give them a capacity of 70. If they do open all the buildings that are serviceable, they could have as many as 200 residents at the Eagles Healing Nest. It is somewhat unique. Most GRH facilities are 2, 6, 8-bed facilities. As we look at 70 beds, it creates some unique challenges for us. Also, a lot of the residents at the facility are from out of county, and they also have residents from out of state. I would like to just highlight briefly 4 areas of services that Stearns County is providing. First is financial services. And as an example, we determine group residential housing eligibility, financial assistance eligibility, and we provide case management for those individuals. GRH funding has been approved for Eagles Healing Nest. We do the eligibility reviews. The monthly tasks include approving and releasing those payments, and then case managing those cases. The next area that we're involved in is providing all of the social services to Eagles Healing Nest. Many residents that arrive there are experiencing chemical dependency issues, mental health issues. We provide those chemical dependency screenings and Rule 25 assessments. Detox services are also being utilized by this population, and our daily per diem at detox is now at $340 a day. Services we also are involved with are adult mental health, vulnerable adult protection, civil commitment, and disability services. The third area is providing correctional services, and this is the most expensive, almost $60,000 annually. A number of residents are ordered to be on probation, supervised release, or pretrial supervision, and are currently living at Eagles Healing Nest. We average about 10, 15 to 20 of the individuals at the facility under some type of supervision, and many are on probation or supervised release in other counties, and those counties periodically will be contacting us to transfer supervision to Stearns County. Many of those are high-risk individuals, and they require intensive supervision services. We have a domestic violence, felony repeat domestic violence court in Stearns County. A number of them are supervised under that program. We also have a repeat DWI program that requires intensive supervision. The final area is our veteran benefits and services. Our county veteran services officers provide outreach to the facility on a monthly basis. They also see residents regularly in our Melrose, Minnesota satellite office. Since many of these individuals have lived a fairly transient lifestyle and have no permanent housing, the amount of counseling to develop a claim for veteran services can be very extensive. One claim may require one visit, and that claim is completed. Others may require records from the National Personnel Records Center in St. Louis, medical records, statements from fellow veterans, ship's logs, etc. Record requests are required in writing, so letters have to be sent, and then those claims processed. It turns out to be a pretty extensive workload for our veteran services officers. Looking at clerical and supervisory costs at 3%, commitment holds, detox, drug testing, and mileage, as well as some administrative overhead. The cost to the county in 2013 was $89,384. The bill is requesting a grant through DHS in the amount of $85,000 per year over the next biennium. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sizer. Representative Anderson. Any other testifiers?
No, I don't have any, Mr. Chair.
All right. Is there anyone from the audience who'd like to testify for or against this bill? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to officially call the meeting to order. And notice that Representative Schumacher would like to move the minutes from March 24th. Are there any additions or subtractions, corrections to those? Seeing none, all those for approval of the minutes of March 24th, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Minutes are adopted. And Representative Anderson, to your bill, questions from members. Representative Liebling.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Anderson, I remember very well when Representative Abler brought this, about this facility, and we had a lot of discussion about it, and I remember having the testimony from some of the folks that stay there and the woman who runs it, and it's certainly a very worthy cause, and obviously it does a lot of great work. And here I think we're hearing the other side of that, because as I remember, originally the county was resistant to having this be, or approving it for group residential housing or something of that nature, and we can kind of see why, not for any lack of goodwill, but just because obviously this is an expensive population with a lot of needs, as we've seen in other places. But I'm sure that we want to meet those needs. I mean, these are veterans. They, we try to serve veterans as best we can. In a lot of settings, we don't always do such a great job. And this is very worthy. But my question is, I was kind of making notes as the gentleman was speaking about the various kinds of things that the county has to provide to support this population. And I'm kind of surmising from this that the facility, because it offers these kind of services, is probably attracting people into the county that you wouldn't otherwise be serving. Maybe you could confirm that for me. But my real question is, how can you do this for only $85,000 a year? It just sounds like this has got to be, I mean, I think that's actually tremendously resourceful if that's true, because of the numbers of people and how needy this population can be.
Mr. Sizer.
Thank you. Yes, it does pull in many of the residents from outside of Stearns County, and there are at times residents from out of state. So this is a population that may not have normally come to Stearns County to seek services. We have a finance division in our department that really gets right down to the penny of what these services are costing based on hours of social workers, probation officers, financial workers, et cetera. And the $89,000 was a 2013 cost. As that population grows, I anticipate those costs will grow proportionately as well.
Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I am understanding from that you're being conservative in your cost estimate here, and you're just you're not coming in and asking for $2 and $3 million to do something grandiose, understanding that it'll be cut back in the end. You're saying this is really what our costs were, and it's probably even a little more, but this is what you feel would just meet the need for now. Is that kind of the right characterization of that?
Mr.
Mr.
Spicer.
Chair. Thank you. Yes, that is the actual cost for 2013.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sizer, I've been to that facility and seen it up close, and they do really, really great work at that particular facility. And it struck me as when I saw the sign-up sheets and the monthly calendar for all of the volunteer work, it just seemed like the intensity around the volunteer work was probably because it needed to get done. But it also seemed very like a good thing. I mean, we're a big-hearted state, really want to volunteer, and particularly this was very well organized. Has there been any documentation about just how many hours per year that we are volunteering at that particular facility?
Mr. Chair, I don't know. One clarification is it's a private nonprofit, 501c3, and Ms. Butler does run that facility. The county doesn't run it or really have any capacity to do that. Our services are providing services for those clients in residence there. She does not have any paid staff. That's one real unique thing about Eagles Healing Nest. All of the staff throughout the day are volunteers. Also, anyone in the evening or weekends is on a volunteer basis. With that number of residents, they also have a peer, I don't know quite how to say it, veterans serving veterans. So those that are in residence longer take on leadership roles and take on some of the supervision, the direction going on at the facility. I would guess it's a few thousand hours a month that is going into that facility in volunteer hours.
And it was just my just kind of my impression that, but for that extremely well-organized staff of volunteers, that those duties would have been taken up by somebody either through one of our programs or the county or somebody, but it did seem a little unorthodox and in a good way. But you could see that they were taking up the work of others. Representative Anderson.
Mr. Chair, that's a good characterization. We like to say it's outside of the box. It's attracting some national attention. There's going to be some national news people there next week to do some filming, talking with veterans. And this place ran on donated time and money for a couple of years. Now they're getting more established. They're actually purchasing the property, and the GRH funding was a great help in getting that done. So the help we can give them in helping veterans to help other veterans would be very much appreciated, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Representative Anderson. So we didn't officially move the bill. Representative Schumacher, would you like to move House File 1296? Be laid over for possible inclusion in the HHS Omnibus Bill. All right. Representative Schumacher moves House File 1296 be laid over for possible inclusion in the Omnibus Bill. There are no amendments to this bill. There are no other questions. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. House File 1296 is laid over for possible inclusion in the HHS Omnibus Bill. Thank you, Representative, and thank you, Mr. Sizer, for coming down.
Thanks, Mr. Chair and members.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have House File 607 with Representative Theis. Please come forward. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I will go ahead and move House File 607, and that will be recommended to be referred to the General Register. Representative Theis, the bill is now before us. Do you have any amendments to House File 607?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right, none as far as I am either. So House File 607 is before us. Representative Theis, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. I am honored to be here today to bring forward House File 607. I door-knocked a lot of homes in the past several years, and the one question I got most frequently was regarding my pro-life stance. I believe it is my duty to represent my constituency in challenging and changing our current law. I believe that the one place to start is with this bill. My folks are not happy spending their hard-earned money on elective procedures because the Minnesota Supreme Court's 1995 Doe versus Gomez ruling. Taxpayer-funded abortions have swelled to 34.8% of all abortions performed in the state, according to the Minnesota Department of Health. It is unfortunate that taxpayer-funded abortions have been on the rise in Minnesota in the recent years. As an advocate for my constituents, it is my duty to make some changes. The reason we're here today is that there was a fiscal note requested, and I believe that you should have that. So with that, I would appreciate your support.
Thank you, Representative Theis. I understand you have several testifiers. The first testifier is Andrea Rao from MCCL. Welcome to the committee, Ms. Rao.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I recognize you have a very full agenda today, so I'll just be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Ms. Rao. If you'd be available to answer questions. The next one, testifier that we have is Reverend Abigail Henderson. No takers. Next up, I'm sorry. Please come forward, introduce yourself for the record, and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Abigail Henderson. I'm an ordained minister serving First United Church of Christ in Northfield, Minnesota, and I'm also here representing the Minnesota chapter of the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice. And I'm speaking hoping that my testimony will remind members that the religious voice in Minnesota is not united against abortion. My words reflect a wide range of values of people of faith and clergy in Minnesota. And my faith has led me to believe that all women deserve the right of self-determination over their bodies. I pray to a God who stands with people when they are suffering and when they are faced with difficult decisions, including women who make the decision to end a pregnancy. And I have arrived at this position through careful prayer, discernment, and conversation with people that I trust, and I trust other women to do the same when they consider how, when, and if to bear children. And I cannot support HF 607 because it prohibits state-sponsored health plans from providing abortion coverage. And I understand that the writers and supporters of this bill do not want tax dollars going toward abortion. As a tax-paying person of faith, I know that I don't always agree with the way the government spends my money. But if we truly believe in the separation of church and state, then we cannot limit the reproductive options of low-income women based on the religious objections of some people. I don't believe it's the government's role to make such important, personal, and intimate decisions on behalf of any women. And whether this legislation passes or not, I know that privileged women will continue to exercise their constitutional right to abortion, and my faith leads me to believe that low-income women on state-sponsored health insurance deserve the same. So I urge the committee to consider religious freedom and protect all women's dignity as you consider this bill, and I thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you, Ms. Henderson. Next up, we have Andrea Ledger. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, I will keep my testimony brief. My name is Andrea Ledger. I am the Executive Director of NARAL Pro-Choice Minnesota. We represent approximately 60,000 Minnesotans statewide and work on issues around reproductive rights and freedom. I'm here in opposition to this bill. In the real world, unfortunately, restrictions on abortion access don't eliminate abortion, but they can push women to make that decision later in pregnancy or push abortion out of reach altogether. Low-income women often have difficulty raising the money to pay for abortion care, and research indicates that economic barriers often cause them to obtain abortion care 2 to 3 weeks later in pregnancy than wealthier women. This is especially problematic because the cost of abortion increases the longer the pregnancy continues. When a woman is living paycheck to paycheck, denying coverage for an abortion can push her deeper into poverty. And studies show that women who seek an abortion but are denied are 3 times more likely to fall into poverty than women who are able to get an abortion. When it comes to the most important decisions in life, like whether to become a parent, it's vital that a woman be able to consider all her options, including an abortion, no matter what her income or source of insurance. A woman facing an unintended pregnancy should not have to make her health decisions based on whether she has enough money. It should be based on what's best for her health and for her family. If abortion coverage is available to some, it should be available to all, and it is available legally to all. Simply put, we shouldn't treat some women's health needs differently than others just because of the type of insurance they have. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Karen Law? Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee. My name is Karen Law, and I'm the Executive Director of Pro-Choice Resources, a reproductive justice organization focused on grassroots advocacy and healthcare access. For over 48 years, Pro-Choice Resources has served Minnesota women and their families. Clergy and doctors founded our organization as they believe all women should be treated with dignity and respect. Our mission is to ensure that all people in communities have the power and resources to make sexual and reproductive health decisions with self-determination and dignity. We believe that access to reproductive health care is a basic human right. I'm here today to speak in opposition of House File 607. We know that the majority of Minnesotans want our representatives to treat people with respect and believe that a woman, not politicians, should make the informed decisions when it comes to her own pregnancy. Yet House File 607 purposely interferes with the woman's personal decision-making. For many, coverage for abortion care means the difference between getting the health care they need and being denied that care. We should not create burdens and restrictions that deny health care coverage for someone who is eligible and qualified for Medicaid just to make it impossible for her to have an abortion. Restricting Medicaid coverage of abortion forces 1 in 4 poor women to carry an unplanned pregnancy to term. I do not understand why we push for these bans when we know these bans will harm Minnesota's most vulnerable women and families. It seems unfair, unjust, and discriminatory. There is a misconception that these bills have been put forth to protect women and are in the best interest of our community. Sadly, this couldn't be further from the truth. These bills are thinly veiled pieces of legislation designed to create additional barriers to abortion and push this health service out of reach for poor women. At Pro-Choice Resources, we know that communities and families thrive when women are able to make the decisions that are best for themselves and their families. Every day we hear from women who are struggling to make ends meet and who are often overlooked and or misrepresented when it comes to the politics of abortion. These women are seeking resources for basic health care. Pregnancy happens in the broader context of our lives, and only the woman knows the full story and circumstances around her decision. We talk to women like Becky. Becky's a 35-year-old mother of 2 children. She has a job where she works 12-hour shifts, but she's never guaranteed a set number of hours per week. It shouldn't matter whether Becky has private or government-funded health insurance. She should have coverage for a full range of pregnancy-related health care, including abortion, if she needs it. It's important to provide insurance coverage to ensure that women will be able to see a licensed, quality health care provider and receive safe care if we truly want to protect and help the women in Minnesota. It makes sense to me that health programs for women with low incomes cover birth control and abortion, not just childbirth, because when people can plan if and when to have children, it's good for them and for our community as a whole. I urge this committee to oppose House File 607. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Law. Is there anyone else from the audience who would like to testify for or against this bill? Seeing none, we'll close the testimony at this time and open it up to member questions and comments. Representative Halverson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Where is this bill being referred to?
The General Register.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for the chair, or for the author. Has anybody talked about the need for this bill to go to the Commerce Committee? It appears from the language that it talks about state-sponsored health programs, and I think that is a broader statement than just our public assistance programs, but actually could impact CGIP, impact PEEP, and so for that reason, it really should be seen in the Commerce Committee as well.
Other comments? Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, could maybe perhaps the author could respond if she's talked to the chair of the Commerce Committee or talked about that path at all?
Sure. Representative Theis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Halverson, I have not.
Mr. Chair, because of the need for us to have oversight over our state programs for employees through PEEP and CGIP, I'd like to move that we re-refer this to the Commerce Committee.
All right. Representative Halverson moves a re-referral to the Commerce Committee.
And, Mr. Chair, I would request a roll call, please.
Roll call having been requested, there will be a roll call. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, point of information, don't we have to vote on the bill to pass before we entertain a motion to, no?
Representative Grunhagen, the current motion that is before us is a re-referral to the General Register made by me. In order to change that, we would have to vote to change the referral. That is what is currently up for debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You bet. Other discussion. Representative Schoen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative, are there any restrictions on vasectomies under state-sponsored plans?
Representative Schoen, I think that probably goes to the bill. Our debate is going to be on the motion, the Halverson motion to re-refer.
I got bill discussion. Sorry.
Oh,
let me know when we're doing that.
I will not forget. All right, Representative Schoen.
I got more.
Further discussion on the re-referral. There is a roll call. I would just say that in looking at the bill, this bill has been heard in the Policy Committee as well, and here where we cover our public programs and what is covered, not covered on public programs. That's the purview of this committee. So I would recommend that it not go to the Commerce Committee. The chair of the Commerce Committee has not asked for this bill. Representative Liebling. Oh, I'm sorry. Waffler, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm wondering if Representative Kiel could clarify the intent of her bill, because the language is very unclear as to the intended audience, whether it's simply people on medical assistance or it's a more broader definition of state-funded health programs, because whether that would influence what committee it should go to. And
thank you, Representative Waffler. Representative Theis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was just talking to Ms. Rao about that, and she's going to take this one.
Ms. Rao.
Mr. Chair, Representative Loeffler, members of the committee, my name is Andrea Rao, and I'm representing MCCL, Minnesota Citizens Concerned for Life. This bill has been before the legislature many times in the past and has gone through the committee process many times as well. It has never been referred to Commerce. None of the Commerce chairs in the past have requested it. And my recollection, although I can't recall the exact definition, but I seem to believe that there is a definition somewhere in statute that does specify exactly which programs would be covered under this. And maybe if somebody from the department or elsewhere knows that for certain.
Perhaps Ms. Olson, if you might have a comment on that, on a little bit about a history of that. If not, I believe we have had both federal and state prohibitions on funding within our programs from the federally with the Hyde Amendment and also within our state-based programs. We have clarified that within our legislation for legislative intent in the past. So we have spelled that out within our program definitions in the past.
Mr. Chair?
Representative Liebling. Waffler, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I mean, I do think no matter what the topic of a bill is, we need to know what we're influencing, whose lives we're impacting, whose life choices we're narrowing or expanding. And it's just good form for us to understand if this is just people who are enrolled in state subsidized health programs like medical assistance or Minnesota Care, or if we're looking much more broadly to employee benefits. It has a much broader, bigger scope. If we are talking about the Public Employees Insurance Program, or we're talking about local governments, none of whom have come before us to, and I suspect do not understand that they may be impacted by this, but would pay attention if it was sent to the Commerce Department, the Commerce Committee, where they do pay attention to employee provisions that is typically in the jurisdiction of that committee. And so, to me, it's important before it goes to the floor that those who are impacted, whether you support or oppose this, have fair notice of who we're talking about and who's impacted, because this may have implications for budgets beyond our own, local government budgets. It may have implications for contract relationships, vendor relationships with the health plans, for self-insured plans. And so it really does, I think it's good for us to know the scope, and I think it would be, since we're, the author, Representative Theis, and her witness prefer the current language, that I think we do need to send it then to the Commerce Department, who can, or the Commerce Committee, because they will be able to interpret what we can't in this committee, because it's not our purview to decide whether this language refers to the insurance packages provided to school district employees, city employees that are through the Public Employees Insurance Pool, or whether it applies to our state employees through the CGIP program.
Thank you, Representative Loeffler, and I just direct you to lines 1.6 and 1.7 of the bill. Funding for state-sponsored health programs shall not be used for funding abortions except to the extent necessary for continued participation in a federal program. I believe that's the identical language that we have carried in the bill in the past. It's fairly clear. Other questions? Representative Liebling.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that whether or not we've carried this exact language in the past, I don't think is really relevant to the question before us, which is even our staff, even our House research staff, don't know what this language means. And I think it is very important when we're taking away women's choices, that we at least know which women we are taking choices away from. And Representative Theis introduced the bill by talking about how abortions, publicly funded abortions, have increased, I guess as a proportion, because I do believe that the number of abortions has been dropping over the years. Everybody's nodding. That's right. I think we could all agree that's a good thing. But she's perhaps intending this only to take choices away from poor women, when in fact it may take choices away from every woman sitting around this table who's a state employee, and a lot of other state employees. So I think if we're going to take choices away from women and say, women on Medicaid are in a little different situation. Obviously, those are taxpayer-provided, but it's also taxpayer-provided resources for those of us who have state insurance through our job. Although I suppose that those of us who have that would say we've earned that, and it's part of our compensation, and we should be able to make our own choices with what we have earned. So if you want to pass a bill, Mr. Chair, that takes away women's choices, I think we should at least know women in Minnesota, not even we, but the women who may be watching, who should be paying attention, need to know if you are taking away their choices or only somebody else's choices. And that is a very important consideration. This bill needs to go to Commerce. It needs to be vetted about which programs it impacts, and as Representative Loeffler laid out, what the impacts may be on all of the state-sponsored health programs. So, members, I urge you to vote yes on Representative Halverson's motion.
Representative Halverson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to follow up on Representative Loeffler's question, Representative Kiel, I'm wondering if you can comment regarding the, excuse me, Theis. We're all mixing up each other's names today. We could ask her too. If you could comment on the legislative intent regarding the language state-sponsored health programs. Are you intending that this only impact people who are on public assistance programs? Are you intending this language to be broader and hit the employed population of the state as well?
Representative Theis.
The intent is basically to take a program that uses taxpayer monies to fund it. So, you know, I'm looking at, I mean, I think it's very specific. We're looking at taxpayer dollars and where they're being used.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Halverson.
To that point, then it is very clear that we will also be talking about the employed population who are on state-sponsored programs such as CGIP and PEEP. So that just confirms that we need this to go to the Commerce Committee. And to fix any potential confusion in the future, we can certainly make that language more clear in the Commerce Committee. So we understand the path and why it's there and exactly what the legislative intent is of this language. So I urge you to vote yes on my motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call having been requested. The roll call. The clerk will take the roll.
Chairman Dean?
No.
Vice Chair McDonald?
No.
Representative Liebling?
Yes.
Representative Loeffler?
Yes.
Representative Allen? Representative Backer?
No.
Representative Franson?
No.
Representative Grunhagen?
No.
Representative Halverson?
Yes.
Representative Hamilton? Representative Lane?
Yes.
Representative Lomer?
No.
Representative Mack?
No.
Representative Murphy?
Yes.
Representative Purcell?
Aye.
Representative Pearson?
No.
Representative Schoen?
Aye.
Representative Schomaker?
No.
Representative Zerwas?
No.
There being 7 ayes and 10 nays, the motion does not prevail. The referral will remain to the General Register. Representative Theis, to your bill. Other questions? Sorry. We had Schoen next. Sorry. Representative Schoen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, sorry I was a little bit out of order there earlier. Do we put any restrictions on vasectomies in the same fashion that your bill would currently on women's health care issues?
Representative Theis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative Schoen. I am not aware of anything right now. This bill just specifically talks about this subject.
Okay. Do you know anywhere, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair,
Representative Schoen.
do we, if you're in a state-sponsored plan, do we cover medication for erectile dysfunction currently?
Representative Schoen, who are you directing the question
To the author. Do we have any restrictions on erectile medication dysfunction in state health care plans?
Representative Theis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative Schoen. I don't know.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Then, you know, I'll tell you why I oppose this bill, is that as it comes to sperm, erections, and testicles, we don't get into that issue. But when it comes to women's health care issues and a more guided religious discussion, That's where we don't seem to be bothered by the separation of church and state. Now, I may personally go to my church and say would rather abortions didn't happen, but I also understand the difference between what we're doing here inside this building as it pertains to the decisions my daughter may have to make as it relates to her health care. Now, I don't want anybody dealing with my male reproductive issues in state law, if they should ever happen. And I don't know why we would do that to women in state law. A lot of things happen in your own personal life and make your own personal decisions at church or otherwise. And I think that's where that belongs. This doesn't belong in state law.
Representative Liebling.
I didn't know I was on the list, but thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I just have to think about it, and I'm on the list.
Always on my mind.
That's the idea. So, Representative Theis, I'm interested in this clause on 1.7 that starts on 1.7, except to the extent necessary for continued participation in a federal program. So what is the extent that would be necessary for continued participation in a federal program? To what extent does the state have to use its state funding for abortions to maintain participation? What federal programs are we talking about here?
Ms. Trump.
Well, Mr. Chair, I asked the author.
Oh, I'm
Is
sorry.
the author not?
Representative Theis, if you'd like to answer, it looks like Ms. Rao is expert in this area. She could probably follow up. Representative Theis, if you'd like to respond to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just to make sure that the information is correct, I would like to ask Ms. Rao to answer that one.
Ms. Rao.
Mr. Chair, Representative Liebling, members of the committee, I believe it states in the fiscal note as well, we are talking specifically about the Medicaid program and the Hyde Amendment that is done annually on the federal level, which prohibits paying for abortions except for cases of saving the life of the mother and in cases of rape and incest. So we would continue to fund abortions in those cases as required.
So, Mr.
Representative
Chair.
Liebling.
Thank you. So, Representative Theis, are there definitions somewhere in Minnesota law of what those things mean then? Do we have, what is required then? If a woman says she's raped and she goes to her doctor, supposing this became law, a woman on Medicaid is raped, she goes to her doctor, say she goes to a Planned Parenthood clinic, what is the procedure supposed to be to determine that she was raped? Or is it now that everybody would get around this by saying I was raped?
Representative Theis.
You know what this bill will do? Will just continue to follow the federal guidelines, which is spelled out in the Hyde guidelines.
Well, Mr. Chair.
Representative Liebling.
Representative Theis, it seems to me then that you're asking this committee to pass a bill without understanding what its operation really is. How is it really going to work in Minnesota? Just telling us, oh, well, we'll do whatever is in the federal law is not much of an answer. This bill, other than the severability clause, which seems to be just boilerplate on every abortion bill, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 lines in this bill. And this is as important as Ms. Rao is around this body. She's not a member, and I think it's really incumbent on you to be able to tell this committee how this stuff is supposed to work, because right now we know how it works in Minnesota, and it works pretty well. And to say then that we're going to now be interpreting the federal law, and the federal law is going to govern, I think is not, doesn't really help us very much here, because I want to know how, if this thing would become law, how would a rape victim show that she's a rape victim? Or, God forbid, a victim of incest. What is she going to have to do to show that she's entitled to have a state-paid abortion? So we're going to take away women's choices. We're also going to put them through some procedure if, God forbid, they should have one of these things happen and need help for that reason. We're going to put them through some unknown procedure that you are coming to this committee and not even able to tell us what that would consist of. So I guess that's more of a comment, Mr. Chair.
Representative Loeffler.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Theis, are you aware that in 1995, the Minnesota Supreme Court considered this exact proposal or very similar wording and found that it violates our Minnesota Constitution and the right to privacy as it's defined in the Minnesota Constitution?
Representative Theis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Loeffler, yes, I am.
And
Representative Loeffler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Theis, then, why do you feel the need to bring forward something that we have already had our highest court of Minnesota determine is unconstitutional?
Representative Theis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Loeffler, because my district, when I was talking to folks, as I said, the question that comes up most often for me is, how do I stand on pro-life issues? And they are not happy with the way the Minnesota law is, and they wanted to challenge it. Yes, they're aware of what is happening, but I also know that only 17 states in the United States have laws like Minnesota. And I'm willing to take on the challenge to basically do just that, challenge it, because I don't think everyone in Minnesota really approves of where the taxpayer dollars are going.
Well, Mr. Chair.
Representative Loeffler.
And Representative Theis, going through the court process, through all the levels up to the Supreme Court is not an inexpensive process. It requires the involvement of a lot of attorney general time, a lot of preparation, and the fiscal note does note that that's a likely outcome, that we would have a court challenge, and I don't see a fiscal note from the Attorney General's office estimating what that would be, and I would think that that would be something that this committee would want to put in. As I understand it, state agencies are responsible for funding the attorney generals that service them and defend them against lawsuits. And so I think, Mr. Chair, that we need a fiscal note from the Attorney General's office on the estimated cost of the litigation, since it is almost guaranteed that this will go through the court process, and the author has indicated that that is her intent.
Representative Loeffler, I'm not aware of us really designing in costs for court cases that haven't happened yet, so I wouldn't expect that. Representative
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
It would be anticipated that this would happen within the next 2 years, the biennium for which this committee is going to prepare the budget. And so I really do believe that that is a cost associated with the bill, that this committee is responsible for anticipating and legislation it brings forward.
Appreciate that. Representative Grunhagen.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Theis, for bringing this important legislation forward. Theis, I sincerely appreciate it. My basis for supporting this is twofold, but, you know, Norma McCorvey was the Jane Roe in the 1973 Supreme Court decision. She has now, many years later, become pro-life. And in her words, she said the Supreme Court, the Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision is no longer valid because scientific and anecdotal evidence has come to light in the last 30 years that has shown the negative effects of abortion. So the fact is, from a medical and scientific standpoint, we know now what we didn't know in 1973, that life begins at conception. So unlike erectile function or a vasectomy, all right, we're talking about a human life from conception. That is a settled medical and scientific fact. Once you introduce life into the womb, then treating it as non-life and as some other type of a medical procedure is simply irrational from my standpoint. So I strongly support the bill. I thank you for bringing it forward and look forward to voting it forward on the House floor.
All right. Representative Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd make two comments. One, we usually have the stereotypical view of a young girl in a situation that, she doesn't really know when we need to help her. But in fact, many abortions are had by mature adult mothers for whom this is a decision about the family, a family decision, a family choice. It's a private family choice. And which brings me to my other comment about the first testifier, religious freedom. I believe that the belief regarding what Representative Gruenhagen just mentioned is actually a religious view. I personally have strong religious beliefs and supported by my faith in my church, and I need to stand for religious freedom in this. I don't want politicians interfering with the private religious beliefs of me and others, making religious beliefs imposed on others. This is a very, very dangerous place for politicians to go in imposing religious beliefs on others.
Representative Lomer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Theis, I'm just very, very grateful that you brought this bill forward today. I, like you, have very many constituents that are very, very troubled by the fact that their dollars pay to end the life of an unborn child. And these people are religious as well. And I'm very grateful, and I, too, look forward to supporting your bill. So thank you very much for bringing it forward.
Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to revisit, if I may, some of the language that Representative Liebling was talking about. And my question, I'm looking at the research brief here, is this the Hyde Amendment language and what it means? And I trust somebody's going to know what this language means if we've been down this road how many times talking about this bill and others that have this language. So I'm looking at where a woman's life is at risk. And does that life is fairly clear to the author, if I may, Mr. Chair. Does that include health in that determination of a woman's life at risk, such as her mental health? Do we know that?
Representative Theis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Purcell. I don't believe it does. I believe it has to do with instances where a mother develops gestational diabetes or high blood pressure, things like that. And I would say they're more immediate life-threatening measures. That is what the Hyde Amendment talks about.
Representative Purcell.
So, and that concerns me because I know we're hearing a bill here in a little while, a 1062, that talks about mental health crisis services, and certainly, we're beginning to get a hold of the fact that the head's connected to the rest of the body, and treating the brain and our mental health as part of our human body. So I'm concerned if that wouldn't be part of the interpretation that the life and health of the woman would be considered here. So that alone would bring me to oppose this.
All right. Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. First, a question for the author of the bill, for Representative Theis. And I'm asking this question to make sure I understand your aim here. Because as I listened to you speak, it sounded to me that you're carrying this legislation because you have constituents who want to see a law change. And as I understand this issue, the court has made a decision. And so if this bill were to become law, it would be found under my current understanding, it would be unconstitutional. So my question for you is, are you bringing this legislation to trigger a court challenge with the Minnesota Supreme Court? Is that your actual aim?
Representative Theis.
Thank you. Mr. Chair and Representative Murphy, my intent is to challenge this as far as I can take it. I really believe that, especially the folks in my district and some of the other districts, really do not agree with this law at all and are not happy with the court decision that happened in 1995. And they're ready to stand up and say, we just don't believe it's the right way to go. And that is why I'm here today.
And Mr. Chair and Representative Theis, so we are hearing this legislation today in order to trigger a Supreme Court challenge.
Representative Theis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative Murphy. To be truthful, I'm just trying to get it through this body, and that's as far as I'm looking right now. I know it's been a challenge through the years, and based on the support from my district, I'm willing to take that on.
And Mr. Chair and Representative Theis, you understand that the Supreme Court has already ruled on this issue in Minnesota, and so you could pass this through this body, and it would be viewed as unconstitutional unless you're trying to trigger a Supreme Court challenge. Is that clear, Representative Theis?
Representative Theis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative Murphy. I understand that.
Thank you, Representative Tyson. We take these bills up every cycle, and they're challenging, I think. They're challenging for me, I will just say, because they're such strongly held beliefs. There are. And in, if you think about human life and the lives of the people that we're talking about, and Representative Mack, I know we almost always agree on this point. We're talking about people, women, health care, and we talk about it so just without any emotion when we're here. I can't imagine what women who are listening to this must think if they are in that position of having to face this choice. And we go through this routine over and over and over again, and it feels so disconnected from the real life experience of the women who and their partners who face this. And I just kind of getting to my breaking point on that. We should be working more to prevent the situation. We should. And we should be doing that together, not this. If we all agree that we want to see a reduction in abortions, and that's where we've been heading, haven't we, Representative Liebling? Then we should be doing that. And so, Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask you one hard question. Would you be willing to hear the CHEER Act, which requires contraception coverage? Could we hear that here? And you don't have to answer right now. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but seriously, if our aim is to reduce abortion, we should be doing more to prevent it. I'll make my question a rhetorical one. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Murphy. I just point out that Representative Theis has every opportunity to bring forward a bill, and we might have opinions on where that goes or what other actions that might trigger. I know that many folks in the legislature don't like the Citizens United verdict, for example, and we've seen several pieces of legislation moving on that at the state legislative level to move forward, and it's every right of the legislature and legislators to bring that forward to change the laws that they don't agree with and that represent the best interests of their constituents. Representative Mack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and it's funny that you referenced me, Representative Murphy, because I felt like I was having deja vu. I can't remember what term it was for me or what term it was for you, but it feels like a different life now, but that we were doing this very thing, and so I will probably say similar things to what I said then, that, there's a lot of issues and it's not an easy conversation, but I guess just a couple of points just to challenge a few of the things I've heard said. I think to maybe suggest that just by simply Representative Theis bringing this bill forward, she's triggering a Supreme Court case. And while there might be evidence from the past to suggest that that might happen, we're all here with election certificates, not bound by anything the court has or has not said in the past, because we have the incredible honor and privilege of making laws that the court is responsible to uphold. And so I think that that's a valuable point for all of us to keep in mind as we approach our business here. And I also just want to say I think we have to be careful about what we make this about. and there's been a couple comments, Representative Schoen and Representative Lane, about this being about religion and imposing religious views. And I just want to challenge that, and you have your right to your opinion, absolutely, but I can just speak for myself that that's not what this is about, that it's not me believing that it's my religious views imposing on somebody else. To me, it's absolutely about protecting life. And I think that's where the crux of a lot of the debate can be. I won't put that on everybody else's views, but I do believe it's about protecting life, and I'm not interested in taking away people's choices. But what makes this issue so challenging is that this doesn't involve just one person's choice. At the point somebody becomes pregnant, it is now two lives in one body, and that's why it makes this decision so incredibly difficult to delineate, because now two lives are involved, and one of them has no say and has no choice in this matter. And that is, I'm not saying that that's an easy decision for any of us, but I do think that's what makes it so painstakingly difficult. And so just speaking for myself, I'm not interested in taking away choice. I am not trying to impose my religious views on other people. But it is absolutely about protecting life, and we can disagree on that, and I understand that. But I just think it's important to keep it in mind, because it seems like it's a hard thing sometimes for other people who disagree with me to understand that it's about protecting life, and it's not about anything else. And for anybody who's walked through this with a woman who's choosing abortion and has chosen abortion and has walked through that with them, they know it's not about demonizing women. And it's not about demonizing an agonizing choice, but it's about supporting people in very difficult situations, which is what we do in this committee. It's the name of the game in this committee, is people get dealt a really rough hand, either through poor choices or being a victim or whatever the case might be. And everything we do here that we're making decisions on is a product of some of those ills in our society and some of those bad things that happen. And so I just want to make the case that I respect Representative Theis for taking on a very difficult fight. I respect people who disagree with me on this issue, but let's just be careful about not making it about something it's not about. It's not about religion. It is not about trying to hurt people's choices. And I realize I just speak for myself, but any other characterization is not fair. It is about protecting life, in my view, and that's what my vote represents.
Representative Schoen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Mack, and I absolutely respect your opinion. And, you know, exactly all of the things that you said we can accomplish in a completely different way. We can protect life and not limit choices. And that is exactly what we're doing here today, is we're limiting choices. And you said you don't want to limit choices, but that is what we're doing. And I realize that your feeling is that, you know, life, maybe there's somewhere down the road, and I'll go back to the men's issues. You know, I mean, sperm's alive. You need sperm to create that fetus, and it is life-changing for whoever that may be. And there could be so many circumstances. And yes, I have had friends that have made the decision to have an abortion and to not have an abortion. Either way, those decisions were extremely difficult. And all I could say at the time was, as your friend, or as we are your friends, we're here to support you in any way that you need that, because that is the hardest decision I think I've ever seen people have to make in some circumstances. This is about limiting choice, and that is a choice to health care, that is a choice to life decisions. Not a single one of us in this room are perfect. And folks, this is just the wrong direction. Representative Helverson brought up a great point. The only reason that you would bring this bill forward is to, I mean, there's a statement here, and I absolutely respect that. We do that all the time. And if our goal is, if we ever did get this passed and it actually got signed into law, it's going to be a court challenge. Because these are the only bills, and there may be others, because I'm not a professional, but all of the bills that I've seen come through here about that are anti-choice legislation have a severability clause that says, basically, we know it's going to be unconstitutional, but we're going to put it through anyway. So if the only lines 1.8 from starting at for the purposes of this section are the only thing left in the bill that are constitutional. At least we got a bill with a title and words to say we tried. I get it. But in the end, people can say no. And we can do this in a different way. They don't have to have an abortion. We don't force people to have an abortion, nor should we take away their choice in this circumstance. I don't think that you should be forced into anything you want to do, and I don't think you should be limited from this ability either. And, I will say that probably over time my opinion has changed on this, and having a daughter has certainly changed that in a big, big way. She's 9 years old. And I don't know, I might not be on this planet 10 years from now to have a good discussion if something like this were to happen, because I know we'd sit around the dinner table and hopefully she would feel comfortable to come to me and say, Dad, this is what happened to me, and this is what I'm thinking. And we'll talk about the plus or minuses if we get into that situation, all the decisions and all the options that she could have to, which include adoption, which include a million other things, whatever she decides she wants to do. But no matter what, I want her to know your dad is there for you to help make you, to support you in that decision. And I know it's going to be hard. And if the abortion is what she decides she needs to have for her, not for me or anybody else on this planet, but for her, then she should have that right. And we shouldn't be sitting here debating this particular issue. We should be doing things like the CHEER Act to help couples. And it's not just about women, it's about the men in those women's lives too that are helping create life, as you say. Work together. And I've said, probably in jest a little bit over here, I don't want my testicles bothered anymore in state law than I want your ovaries bothered in state law. I'll make those decisions, and so should you.
Representative Schoen, I think that members of this committee who probably hold a different view would consider people who are unborn some of our most vulnerable people. And as Representative Mack said, aside from religious points of view, we see one of our primary roles is to protect the people in our culture who are most vulnerable. We are a nation of laws. We are first a nation of rights. And we believe very strongly about that, those of us who hold this position. And Representative Theis, respect her for bringing this forward. And thank you. Last word, Representative Theis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will tell you why this bill is important to me. Because at 17, I wasn't in a position where I did make a choice. And while you as a father may think you know how you're going to react, you don't know for sure. My father never planned for it. We never talked about it. He was extremely supportive. But I will tell you that it wasn't at 17 necessarily my religious beliefs as much as it was that I couldn't stop a beating heart and call it health care. So I will tell you my son is 37 and he's married and has a 2-year-old son who's absolutely the most precious things to me. I'm here because I think a lot of women feel they don't have choices other than having an abortion because that's what they're told, because this is the only option for them. I'm bringing this forward again because, quite frankly, I think the discussion needs to continue to happen no matter what. And I certainly don't disagree at all about making it about contraception. I don't. But I do believe that stopping the heart is just not right. We have many laws that punish us for doing that. And that is my view. I could not do it, and it hurts me that anyone else makes that decision. So I'm just here to continue the conversation. I think that enough people are not happy with the way the law is, and if we don't say anything, people think we're fine with it. And so with that, I appreciate your support. I know not everybody's always going to agree on it, and we never will. but I'm willing to take it on and challenge it right now because it's that important to me. So with that, I hope I get your support.
Thank you. Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and we would like a roll call on this bill. But and Representative Theis, I appreciate your heartfelt statement that you've made, and I just do want to say to you, I'm glad that you were able to make your own choice. And the problem I think comes that even if and I think many of us probably believe that a fetus is life. I mean, I don't know how you can really deny that it's life, but that doesn't mean that's not the end of the question for people, because even in this bill, you said yourself, if a woman is raped or a victim of incest, then she could get an abortion. Well, that fetus is no less life than a fetus that was conceived under some other circumstances. So judgments are being made. And the real question, the real clincher, I think, for those of us who, on this side, is we don't believe that politicians should make that choice. And I think that Representative Schoen was talking about that very well. And you are a politician in this circumstance, and so am I. And that's really the issue here. Because if you have a daughter and she's pregnant and you can say to your daughter, honey, I don't think it's within our values for you to have an abortion. And that's fine. You could have that conversation with her. When I see those billboards that say abortion stops a beating heart, I'm like, fine. Go out and tell people that. I have no problem with that at all. The place I have a problem is where we use the power of government to stop people. Not convince them, not talk to them, not offer them resources and make them able to carry their child to term, not give them help, but stop them by the power of law, either by taking away the resources that they need, as in your bill, or literally stopping them by closing clinics and making it unavailable or whatever the procedure is, or criminalizing it as was done in the past. That is politicians telling women how to make those choices. And they are difficult choices. You've just demonstrated that yourself. And you were able to make that choice. And that is why this is so difficult and emotional for many of us, because we all here, I think, understand the complexity of these decisions. But when it comes down to making those really tough choices, we don't want government to tell people how to make them. We want people to be free to make them. And I think this is, I always thought that was a Republican value, that individuals should be able to make their own choices. And in this case, it appears not to be. And, you know, I get it, that this to you is a life and you want to stop everybody from destroying life. But that's not, it isn't an all or nothing. There are lots of situations where people have to make those choices themselves because the issues they have to balance are very subtle and personal issues, and I think that's what it comes down to. So we do need a roll call, Mr. Chair.
Roll call having been requested, there will be a roll call. The clerk will take the roll.
Chairman Dean.
Yes.
Vice Chair McDonald.
Yes.
Representative Liebling.
No.
Representative Loeffler.
No.
Representative Allen. Representative Backer.
Yes.
Representative Franson. Yes. Representative Gruenhagen.
Yes.
Representative Halverson.
No.
Representative Hamilton. Representative Lane.
No.
Representative Lomer.
Yes.
Representative Mack.
Yes.
Representative Murphy.
No.
Representative Purcell.
No.
Representative Pearson.
Yes.
Representative Schoen.
No.
Representative Schomaker.
Yes.
Representative Zurwas.
Yes.
there being 10 ayes and 7 nays, the bill is re-referred to the General Register. Thank you, Representative Theis.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we are going to move to House File 1632, which is Representative Backer's bill. If you could come forward and move your bill, Representative Backer. And I understand there is an amendment.
I believe that, Chair, and yes, there is a amendment.
All right, let's go ahead and move your bill, Representative Backer, House File 1632. We are moving that to House File 1632 be laid over for possible inclusion.
Yes.
All right, Representative Backer, and the bill is now before us, laid over for possible inclusion as motion, and you have an amendment in the packet. Could you please describe your amendment and move that, Representative Backer?
What this amendment does is it clarifies the position, exactly what the position is, and just clarifies that we came to this amendment after discussions with other state agencies.
Very good. Thank you, Representative Backer. Any questions on the amendment? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Representative Backer, to your bill.
Yes, I will be brief. What this bill does is, as we know, there's a American Disability Act from the federal government, and what this bill does is it allows additional funding. So organizations, for example, like when this Twin Stadium was built and the Viking Stadium, we're able to make sure that all Minnesotans, people with disabilities, can enjoy those facilities, and not just those facilities, but pretty much all the facilities. So with that said, I'm going to turn that over to my testifier.
Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Joan Wilshire. I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota State Council on Disability. I've been before you folks before. As you know, we're a small state agency that was established 41 years ago to advise government, state legislatures, state agencies, and the public about specific disability issues. And so today I'm just going to briefly tell you what this bill is about and why it's important. MISGED consists of 6.1 staff. We are small. We receive just a little over $1.2 million per biennium in appropriation. We cross all aspects of the disability community, from building code accessibility, disability parking, employment, transportation, and we do this across the state. We field an average of around 20,000 contacts a day, and that's like emails, trainings, calls, meetings, legislative contacts, and et cetera, in our office per year with that 6.1 staff. Most of the calls we receive are ADA-related issues, and therefore you could really say that much of our work is involved around ADA and rights for people with disabilities. However, recently we have seen a drastic increase in the demand for accessible communication services as well. When we communicate with our constituents, it must be in a fully accessible format. We serve the general public, architects, design professionals, municipalities across Minnesota, as well as other state agencies in our work here at the council. The first position that you're looking at here will make agency communications accessible to our constituents and consult the public and private sector on the accessible communications to the disability community. The amendment that you just voted on really just narrows that down so that we're working on just the accessible communications piece in a consultative fashion. The second position we're looking at, we are requesting, will increase our capacity to do more accessibility work and begin succession planning for the current staff person who's been with us for 28 years, who leads the state projects on the accessibility issues for like the Twin Stadium, the Vikings, the Saints ballpark, and et cetera. You know, she's there to make sure that accessibility is enforced and inclusive basically to all Minnesotans. So it's for all of us basically. Over the last year we have had to turn down many new projects. One project that we just can't get to, of course, is the big Mayo expansion, and we really should be at the table with that. And I just don't have the capacity to do that. So without this position, Minnesota will become perhaps a little less accessible and face possible non-compliance issues with the ADA. And as I said, this is especially important to all Minnesotans, especially our aging population. As people age, disability sometimes is incurred along the way. So now the $4,000 that's listed here covers the remainder of the 3% cost of living increase in fiscal year 2016. It's a one-time appropriation. The $30,000 that covers the upgrades in our computer system, and we need this in order to really upgrade our old system that's doing our tracking of our agency's work that we do. And it really helps us, allows us to focus on our resources better too. Finally, as we look to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the ADA coming up here on July 26th this summer, we want to just make sure we can continue to do this good work as a technical resource to Minnesota's public and private sectors. This will really just increase our ability to just do the good work that we've been doing all these 41 years. So thanks for the opportunity to talk a little bit more about our agency and the good work that we do.
Thanks, Ms. Wilshire. And could you tell me how many staff you have over there now?
6.1.
6.1. You guys, you do
On a good day.
You do a lot of work in all our counties, and you do an excellent job. We do appreciate it, and also realize with ADA lawsuits and compatibility and changing codes, we do have a large cost that we pay when we don't take things into account up front. So we realize that you're an agency actually that does save our state a lot of money, so we appreciate the good work that you do.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Representative Backer, Ms. Wilshire? Seeing none, Representative Backer removes his motion that House File 1632 as amended be laid over for possible inclusion in our omnibus bill. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. 1632 as amended is laid over for possible inclusion. Thank you, Ms. Wilshire. Representative Backer.
Thank you.
We're going to do one more bill today, and then we're going to be coming back tonight after Health and Human Services Policy Committee. The next bill that we have up will be House File 278, Representative Kiel. Representative Kiel, welcome to the committee. I will move House File 278 be recommended to be re-referred on the Committee on Higher Education and Policy. I will go ahead and move that bill. The bill is before us. Representative Kiel, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. Yes, members, you've already heard the research, a lot of the background of Alzheimer's and what we're talking about. What we need to talk about today basically is the funding, and unfortunately I don't have real detail on the funding because there was a little bit of a glitch and there's been some changes, but we're going to talk about what's in here. There is a grant for $5 million that appropriates for research and funds, and I believe we're going to hire it after this to talk about that some more. And then also grant programs that I believe are $500,000 a piece that deal with the state dementia grant program and also the regional and local projects to help educate people, whether it is nursing homes or families, to help take care of family members that have Alzheimer's. And then there's also funding for a public communications program to also advertise and to help people to connect to different resources so that they're able to get the help they need. With that, there's some new statistics, and we'd like to share those with you real briefly. We realize that we need to be done shortly here. But I have with me, I'm going to lose the name again, Deborah.
It's the same as yours.
Deborah, yeah, that I got. Anyway, and let her explain to you the new numbers.
Thank you. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Debbie Richmond, and I'm the Vice President for Education and Outreach for the Alzheimer's Association, Minnesota and North Dakota. And in the interest of time, you do have a copy of my written testimony. I would like to call your attention to a couple of items as a new facts and figures report was released yesterday that does show some significant increases in a couple of areas of interest that correlate directly with the bill. The first one I'd like to just call your attention to is, as we would have suspected, that the number of Americans living with the disease has now increased again to 5.3 million Americans. This is an increase over last year, and we would expect that number to continue to grow. A more significant change was that we have seen significant reductions in deaths related to heart disease, cancer, stroke, HIV, and in particular, the number of deaths the number of death reductions to HIV has now gone from 47% to 52% in terms of reduction, while Alzheimer's disease continues to rise from 68% increase between 2000 and 2010 to now 71%. So we are continuing to feel that sense of urgency to really find a way to effectively treat, delay the onset. Ultimately, it would be fabulous if we could find a cure, but we need an intervention for this disease fairly soon. Thank you.
Is there any other testifiers in the audience that would like to testify for or against this bill?
I don't believe so today.
Seeing none, I just had a question for Representative Kiel. Yes. Representative Kiel, I know this is taking a little bit of a different turn in the Senate as we're looking at research on disease-specific research as things move through. Could you talk a little bit about some of the changes that have taken place and kind of how we're lining up currently with your bill?
We have heard it in Health and Human Services and have talked about the effects of Alzheimer's and the costs. I know that in the Senate, they have talked about the research portion as directed to higher ed, and have been talking about the research. And I realize that typically we don't fund a specific health problem situation. However, this is very serious and something that we need to really approach with real, I want to say vengeance. We need to really look at it, come after it. It is very costly to our system. But more importantly, I think it's really costly to our families and the challenges that we deal with as family either get dementia or Alzheimer's, the challenges that it prevents or poses. So, that is my understanding now, is that Health and Human, it is going through higher ed through the Senate, and there are some different finance concerns also. Mr. Chair, I don't think I explained, and I thought the department might be here, but they did, the Minnesota Department of Aging did contact me and tell me that it would probably cost, there's a 1% clause in this bill, and we're still talking about what that might cost, but it sounds more like 1% only equals $12,000. They're telling me that they would need to hire somebody to manage this, so then it would be closer to $44,000 rather than the $12,000 that is in the bill at this time. So,
thank you. Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Kiel, I'm looking at the appropriations part of this, and if you said this and I missed it, I apologize, but Office of Higher Education, that the money's going to go through higher education?
In the Senate, it is. This wasn't the intent of this bill when it started out, so we have not taken it through higher ed yet. But in the Senate, that's where they went with it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm just looking at line 7.10 and the language that's there, and that's my question. So,
Representative Kiel.
Yes, and I understand that that's why it is, that is that conversation, that it is going to higher education. So, and I'm not sure the conversation, I haven't had a chance to talk to the senator yet about where they ended up. So,
That's kind of the crux of the argument is how to deal with disease-specific research and whether those are through grants or direct appropriations. And I think that that's the discussion that they're currently having in the Senate, as I understand it, within the higher ed division, Representative Purcell. So I'd expect a similar discussion in our higher ed. I don't know if you serve on that committee or not.
No, Mr. Chair, I want to make clear I support the bill. I just had that question. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Appreciate that. Other questions? Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think we see all over our Health and Human Services budget that sometimes you have to invest money to save money. And I, the advocates for this bill have done a really good job of educating us about this problem, and I really do appreciate that. And I hope that we can do something for that. I certainly think that the grants for services and, that kind of falls in line with the kinds of things that we do in Minnesota, it's really critical that we move forward with helping families and, really trying to be innovative about how we deliver services. And, I really do understand your argument that this is just a tsunami, and we've got the silver tsunami, and then I guess we've got the purple part of the silver tsunami, right? And, I think that you've all done a wonderful job. I do still, I just want to raise my hand to sort of explain a little bit more about my concern about the disease-specific thing and why that, I hope, maybe in Minnesota, maybe we need to think about this for the future of having sort of an Institute of Health, the Minnesota Institute of Health. If we decide to go the way of that there are certain disease-specific research that we think as a state would be good for us to fund, so that we put together a panel of, a way to make these decisions and take it a little bit out of the political arena. Because if it were only about how important it's going to be to our economy and so on, but we know that when we think about how to fund research, there's so much more going on than that. Because if you said to me, here are 2 research projects, which one do you want to fund? Well, there's just so much that we here in the legislature can't really understand or don't have the time to understand about, what is really promising, which dollars are really well invested and which might not be, how close somebody might be to making a breakthrough. And if only it were so easy to say, golly, if we gave you $5 million, we'll have a cure. I think we would all just say, how fast can we do it? And I wish it were that. And I hope it will be that. But I certainly hope that that Representative Dean and his bill is going to be able to put some funding toward this. I would certainly like to see that. I would certainly be in support of that. And I think, Representative Kiel, you've done a really great job bringing this forward and pushing it and bringing it to everybody's attention. And, I know it's very personal to you, too, and I know a lot of members feel the same way about it. And if it doesn't hit our family today, it probably will soon. So I know that we all have a big stake in this, and just wanted to speak up and tell you that I, really appreciate your work here. So, thank you.
Well, Representative Kiel, I think one of the things that we need to really think about and look at is the cost. And everybody's talking about our budget target today. And how can you be spending $1.1 billion less and still spend $400 million more in health and human services? Where are all those dollars going? And that's what Representative Knobloch wants to know, and lots of other people. And I think, this sheet really is an important thing to think about. If you got this in your packet, just pull this one sheet out. If you don't take anything else with you, members, it's the Alzheimer's disease treatments and savings for Medicare. If you just look at the costs of where we are, I had remembered the number sticking in my head is $217 billion nationally for health care for Alzheimer's in the United States. Minnesota's population is 1/50th of the country. So if you divide every national number by 50, you kind of get a good feel, plus or minus from where we are, that $217 billion nationally. And if you look at where our state budget is going and what's growing the fastest and what is displacing other dollars, it's Medicaid. And that's what this is. This is people taking care of other people. It's not fancy machines. It's not diagnostic equipment. It's people taking care of other people, which is the most expensive thing that we have in Health and Human Services. It's the most expensive thing that Joe's people in the Aging Committee are dealing with. It's people taking care of people, and that's what we have in Minnesota. We're a big-hearted state. We take care of each other, and it's very expensive. So when we look at that cost spike for Alzheimer's, how can we not address it if we are really serious about getting control over our budgets in Health and Human Services and Medicaid? So I really applaud the efforts, and I know it's an uphill climb. I know the disease-specific is an extremely difficult, challenging thing to push forward, but I would encourage you to keep finding a way at every single stop along the way to keep doing what you're doing. So with that last word, Representative Kiel.
Well, first of all, members, I thank you, Mr. Chair. I thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about this again and the acknowledgement that this is a serious issue. And more importantly, we need to think about the fact that this is people. We are taking care of our citizens. And whether we take care of them in the beginning of life or the end of life, it is really important to value their life. There are many I won't share my stories now, but there are many, many things that happen at the end of life that are very important. Even when we're confused and don't know who our family is or what's happening around us, there's just some real value there. And that's what's important about doing the research and helping to help families to take care of their family members, and for our institutions to be able to help them also to be successful in taking care of those who have lost their memory or have difficulty with life in general. So with that, I would thank you very much and hope you support the bill.
Thank you. The motion before us is that House File 278 be recommended to be re-referred to the Committee on Higher Education, Policy, and Finance. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. House File 278 is re-referred to the Committee on Higher Education, Policy, and Finance. Thank you, Representative Kiel. Members, we are going to recess, and we will be coming back 15 minutes after the health reform policy concludes in the basement this evening.
So rad. Oh, sorry.